from St. Louis Public Radio. This is St. Louis on the Air.
One of the reasons we wanted to do this live was, well, everybody calls it theater prom. It's just a celebration.
I'm sometimes disappointed by the new plays that some of the companies do because I know what's available.
I just think there's a lot of imagination and there's a lot of people trying to put in the extra effort.
And what marks professionalism in a production?
Well, what marks for professionalism in a production is, number one, I don't fall asleep.
I'm Elaine Cha. One of the many beautiful things about live theater is the in-person experience, and that's no less true of events dedicated to celebrating the passion, work, and wonder of extraordinary theater and what goes into making it. So the return of the St. Louis Theater Circle's annual awards ceremony is cause for joy. It's a sign of vibrancy here in STL, and today we've got the added excitement of an exclusive look at the St. Louis Theater Circle's nominations for 2022's Best in Stage. Here to discuss that are Lynn Venhaus, writer and reviewer for PopLifeSTL.com and various metro area local publications. Hello.
Hello.
And Calvin Wilson, theater critic for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
How you doing?
Yeah, welcome to you both. Calvin, last year, the St. Louis Theater Circle Awards were unusual, and not just because they were presented virtually. So plays that were eligible for awards included work from 2020 and 2021, years whose theater sessions, or seasons that is, were hit very hard by the pandemic. Now, this year's is just about 1 year, and that is predictions from 2022. As a theater fan and critic, do you feel like things are back to normal?
I think they're pretty much back to normal. Obviously, the pandemic had a devastating effect on the theater community here, but I'm very happy that it didn't result in more theater companies going out of business. Mm-hmm. I think they held the line. They used streaming in imaginative ways, mm-hmm. and I think it's maybe it's more surprising that they're having such success than you would imagine.
Mm-hmm. What do you think accounts for that success, Lynn?
I think people are hungry to gather. I think there's always been a great sense of community in the theater world here. And I think one of the reasons we wanted to do this live was, well, everybody calls it theater prom. It's just a celebration of everybody's efforts. And to me, it's been such trying times for these companies that anybody trying to make art in these past few years, bravo to mm-hmm. them.
Right. Some resilience there, definitely.
Yes.
Calvin, which theater companies do you think, in considering everything that has happened or not happened in some cases, which companies had good years in 2022?
I think most of them had good years, mm-hmm. Particularly the Black Rep and the Repertory Theater of St. Louis. I mean, you might not like everything they do, and you might wonder, why are you doing this instead of something else? But the level of professionalism with whatever production they do is first rate.
Mm-hmm. And what marks professionalism in a production?
Well, what marks for professionalism in a production is, number one, I don't fall asleep.
Yes.
And number two, you can just see the expertise of the actors and the director and the people behind the scenes have brought to the production, mm-hmm. Because it's like set design, lighting design, all these things. You would only notice them if they're badly done. Mm-hmm. And I've seldom thought any of that stuff was badly done with any of the companies.
That's quite a lot. That means quite a lot, that is. Lynn, how about for you? Which ones sort of stood out as companies that had a really good year in 2022?
I think several of them were very innovative. For instance, SATE, which is Slightly Askew theater ensemble, they did an original play called Brontë Sister House Party, and it was so clever and so fun, and it was a very interactive theatrical experience. And then on the other end, you have the Muni producing Sweeney Todd and The Color Purple, which were outstanding. And so you have the big companies doing excellence, but then you have these smaller companies like Flying North Theatricals did a brilliant revision of Assassins by Stephen Sondheim. And so you have little companies doing great work, but you also have the big companies stepping it up. Like Stages in their new Kirkwood Performing Arts Center, they produced the pre-Broadway tryout to Karate Kid the musical, and then they did a stellar in the Heights, and of course, so you have people producing with a lot of resources because they do have like good resources. But then you have some of the smaller companies using like West End Players Guild, and do it like they perform the Christians in a church setting, which I thought was very innovative and caring. So I just think there's a lot of imagination, and there's a lot of people trying to put in the extra effort.
Well, imagination was definitely the word that was coming to mind as you were describing kind of what your observations have been. Calvin, insofar as new plays go, 2022 seems like it was a great year for that. Which one stood out to you?
New plays. I'm sometimes disappointed by the new plays that some of the companies do because I know what's available, and they're not doing what I would like to see them do. Not that they're in any position to have to please me, but I'm really more impressed with the some of the upcoming productions of the classics.
Okay.
Like there's an upcoming production by Stray Dog Theater of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and that's a really tough play to do.
Okay.
And also St. Louis Actors Studio is doing Uncle Vanya. Again, a really challenging work, and I'd like to see more theater companies doing the classics. I thought the Black Rep did a great job with Death of a Salesman.
Oh, yes, I remember hearing about that. So the St. Louis Theater Circle has 13 critics, and clearly there's sort of a range of tastes and sensibilities there. Michelle Kenyon is someone who talked with us a little bit with our producer, Danny Wysentowski, before the show. And she too, like you, Lynn, had mentioned the Muni. And in particular, she had spoken about the knockout casts. So insofar as the talent goes, is there anyone that has stood out to you, Calvin?
Recently?
Yeah, in 2022?
Well, without singling any one person out, I will say the level of acting talent is excellent in town, and you can tell who are the best actors by how often they work. And they work for a variety of companies.
Are there certain actors that you can name who've managed to get cast in different productions?
Well, yeah, I just did a piece on Jacob Fleckier. He's actually based out of New York, but he's played 3 different characters for new Jewish theater based on the playwright Neil Simon. And this kid this guy is just great, and that's why I did a profile on him. And let me put a plug for my new periodic column on a roll, in which I talk to various actors about their careers and about the roles they're taking on. And you'll be seeing that in Go like every other week.
Lynn, for you, insofar as the performers go, who has stood out to you over the last year?
I think the Black Rep has done outstanding work. Elijah Davis, Kevin Brown, Ron Himes directed 3 shows at the Black Rep that were just outstanding. The African Company presents Richard III, Between the Sheet, and they're doing the August Wilson. They are repeating the August Wilson cycle, and they did Jitney. I think Ron is doing excellent work, and then he subbed in Jitney as a character, so he's a director. But there's a guy named Joel Moses who is fairly new to St. Louis, and he has worked with New Jewish Theater, with SATE, with St. Louis Actors Studio, and he is mentioned here in the nominations, and I think he's one to watch. There's several of them to watch. Summer Bear is an exciting young actress, and so we have a lot of people that have skills. And then there's the people that have been around for a long time that you know when their name is in the cast that you're going to see excellence.
Yeah, I have to agree about Joel Moses. I've seen him in like 3 or 4 things, and he was great in every one of them. I'd also like to mention Michelle Hand. Whenever you see Michelle Hand cast, you know you're going to get a first-rate performance.
And does Michelle Hand has she played a range of roles?
She's played a range of stuff for a bunch of different companies.
Now, speaking of people who are well-known and widely recognized, you are awarding Joan Lipkin with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, among many others, she produced a groundbreaking queer musical, Some of My Best Friends Are. Tell us about this award, Lynn, and what she's being recognized for.
Well, it's a lifetime achievement, and she definitely deserves it. She has been politically active at using theater to explore ideas, to present the issues of the day, and this groundbreaking musical. They had their was it their 30th anniversary, Calvin, this year at the History Museum, and she did things before. It was when many gay actors were still closeted and they were afraid of being in a show about gay people, that their careers would be ruined. So she was ahead of the game in terms of LGBTQ rights. And if anybody is deserving of being somebody not afraid to push the envelope, it's Joan.
We are speaking here with Lynn Venhaus, writer and reviewer for PopLifeSTL.com and various metro area local publications, and Calvin Wilson, who's the theater critic for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And we're talking about the 2022 nominees for the St. Louis Theater Circle's Best Stage. One of the things that I have been hearing a lot about is the way that theater has had to change. So, Lynn, you've just spoken about Joan Lipkin and pushing some of the boundaries. And from what I understand, last year, the categories changed, the names of the categories. Calvin, is that something that you can speak to? What made those changes in the category names, what made it possible and what made it necessary?
Well, if you're talking about male or female or non-binary,
Yes.
that's just something we have to acknowledge. You know, that you have to acknowledge how the actor identifies him or her or their self. Is that a word? I don't know, but you know, you have to acknowledge that. You can't ignore it. Me personally, and I think this has come up in talking about the Oscars. There's a sense in which separating acting out between even male and female doesn't make a lot of sense, because it's not a sporting event. You know, I mean, acting is acting, and a lot of people would say you should eliminate all gender-related categories and just base it on the performance.
Then what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we're learning. I think we're trying to do the right thing. I think we're trying to recognize not everybody neatly fits into a specific role. So we're trying to be as fair as possible.
Okay. Calvin Wilson is a theater critic at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and Lynn Venhaus is a writer and reviewer for Pop Life STL and various metro area publications. Calvin and Lynn, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A full list of the St. Louis Theater Circle Award nominees is available now on our website. Visit stlonair.show to see that list. The St. Louis Theater Circle Awards ceremony will return in live form on April 3rd at 7 p.m. at the Loretto Hilton Center on Webster University's campus.
This episode was produced by Danny Wissentowski.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr. Our production intern is Avery Rogers. Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Our podcast proudly supports St. Louis artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.